I suppose sitting slightly on the outside and looking in, and I remember having this conversation on the car side probably 5 years or so ago, when somebody was asking me why are electric cars not more popular, and my answer in those days was when brands like Ford do not have an electric version of the Focus or the Fiesta, their best-selling models back in the day, then that gives you an indication that we're not quite there. And I think that fast forward in a few years, the Transit hasn't really kind of been available in the UK, certainly in 2021. Is that an indication that until the real big brands put the mass market products on, we've still got that little bit of a lag?
We've got a lag. I think in terms of commercial vehicles, on vans, we're probably about 2 years behind on what cars are, roughly. I don't really know a lot about cars. And if we look at trucks, we're about another 2 years behind. And I'll talk about trucks separately because we've got completely different issues to settle on trucks than we have vans. You cannot compete. Vans are more aligned to cars. Trucks are way back. I mean, trucks and coaches and buses are in a separate sector completely. So we'll keep them separately. If you look at vans, if you look at the sector, mainly small van, medium van, heavy van. For small vans, we're getting pretty good. You've got two really good, interesting ones. The Maxus e-Delivery 3, you can get in theory over 200 miles on the 52.5 kilowatt. Over 200 miles on the 52.5 kilowatt vehicle there, and it can carry just under a ton and nearly a 5 cubic meter load space. And then when we talk about volume players, the PSA group or Stellantis group now, obviously, which is Peugeot, Citroën, Fiat, Opel, Vauxhall, they've brought out obviously the PSA small van. That's a 50 kilowatt. That's got a range of 170 odd miles, and it can carry just under 800 kilograms as well. So we've got the players there, a couple of players that do, in theory, around the 170 to 200 miles. And if you remember, this is what gets me. People saying we should have 300 miles, 400 miles. With the greatest respect, in a lot of cases, I think the government stats show the fact that most vans, over half of vans, work within a 15-mile radius of their home. So, and over 2/3 run on rural roads, and local roads. So, okay, I get the mindset of someone who says, I want to have 300 miles. But in the end, on a diesel vehicle, this ICE mentality, you didn't go to the fuel station every day, but when you come home, if you're home charging, you can charge at home anyway, so you can top it up again. So it's a different mindset change. Oh, I need 300. Yeah, okay. If you're doing Manchester to London every day, what part of the market is that? Probably 5%, 10%, maybe less than that. And so most people, they use the vans, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, they're a plumber. What do? They don't drive all day. They go to a place which isn't too far, within 30, 40 miles of the home, and then they will then stay there. They go at 8 o'clock in the morning. They might go to the builder's merchant. They'll pick up the kit that they want, and then they'll go to the place. They'll drop off at 9 o'clock, and then they'll come. They won't use it then until 5 o'clock when they've fitted the kitchen or they've done whatever they need to do and go home again. Well, okay, then that might be 80, 100 miles. We can do it now easily for over half the people. Everybody keeps pointing to the exception, not to the rule. And I think that's an important thing to go. So, we've got vans now that can do over 200 miles in theory. And I'll talk about that later on, because I must emphasize there's a massive difference between a light vehicle that's doing some work in the middle of summer, and it's a van, as opposed to a Luton-sided, payload intensive, middle of winter, where you can halve that straight off without even thinking about it. So yes, the theory and the practice. I like it to communism, great in theory, but nothing in practice, in the fact that where we do it. So yeah, we've got vans now, and that's just a small van. So small vans, we've got a disruptor, in the fact Maxus could be called a disruptor, part of Shanghai Automotive, and part of the people that own MG and people like that. And then we've got PSA Group or Stellantis, who obviously are a well-known brand, and have a good vehicle. So you've got two great opportunities there. We've also got the MV200, which is finished recently, and we've got some other vehicles coming along. But those two are, at this moment in time, are major players. Medium vans, well, you've got to say straight away, you've got to go to Stellantis. The e-Vivaro is doing phenomenally well. I think it's the best-selling electric van in the UK as of 2021. And, you've got, for that, you've got 75 kilowatt hour, you're doing over 200 miles. It can take a ton, it can tow a ton. Yes, electric vans can tow. Okay, not as much, but again, getting rid of these urban myths that are 10 years old and 5 and 10 years old. They can't tow, they can't do this, they can't do that. Yeah, we're learning, and the industry's learning as well. So you've got that. You've got, we've got second generation Vito coming along now, middle of or the second quarter 2022, where they've upped that down to a 26 kilowatt hour battery. It can do about 160 miles. And that can carry 800 kilograms or thereabout. In fact, it can carry more than the Sprinter. A lot of people don't realise that the e-Vito can carry more than the Sprinter, and I think that's an important thing. So when people are weight sensitive, as opposed to load, i.e., you're cubing out, you're loading out before you're cubing out, as we say in the industry, then Vito is quite an interesting vehicle, especially now the second generation. So we've got vehicles there. They can tow a ton, they can do a ton, they can do 200 miles. So a medium van. We had the Custom, which is a hybrid. I'm not a fan of hybrids, I have to say. I think if you're going to go electric, learn about electric, because that's where we're going to end up. Hybrids are transitional, and I think if you're going to do it, do it that way. Okay. Last but not least, do you want to stop or not?
No.
I can carry on, don't you worry.
No. Definitely.
Yeah, then large vans. So we've done small, and I must say there are other vehicles available as well. So I don't want to, but I'm looking at the longer range which people look at, if you like. Then you mentioned Ford. We've got Transit coming along. Yeah. We've been waiting for Transit. Everybody's waiting for Transit, and that e-Transit 75 kilowatt hour battery, although they call it a 67.5, because again, gross versus useful. People quote two different battery levels sometimes, so you have to make sure that you're comparing apples with apples. So when somebody said to me, okay, a friend that works at Ford said we're coming out with 67.5 kilowatt hour batteries, that doesn't make sense. I don't know that van, that battery pack. And he said, no, it's 75, but we at Ford have decided we want to say useful. So what you do realize is a lot of people quote the gross, but you can't actually get the full 75 kilowatts out of that, because there has to be about 10%, which if you take 10% off 75 gives you 67.5. Then you've got to keep that there for the memory of the vehicle, for all the data that's in there, etc., etc. So you don't access that in a lot of cases. So what we've got there is we've got a great e-Transit. We've got just under 200 miles, 196, I think, is the official total. And again, some vans, on the big vans, we officially now can go up to 4.25 tons, for instance, through derogation. We always, when you pass your car license, you actually get to drive a van up to 3.5 tons, and also tow a small single axle trailer at 750 kilograms. If you add the 750 to the 3,500, you get 4,250. So what the government has done is said, okay, then what we'll do for electric or alternative fuel vehicles, we'll stuff the towing capacity into the van side. So we will allow you, with certain rules, you've got to have some training, you've got to have a day's training, 5 hours training, etc., etc., etc. We'll allow you to go to 4.25 tons. Now, some vans can do that. Big vans, some can't. For instance, the Maxus E-Deliver 9, which again is a great electric van, and again that will do over 200 miles, 219 miles, and that will carry over 1,200 kilograms and will tow 1.5 tons. That will only go up to 405 or 408, or get them mixed up, because the axle plated weights will not allow it to go up to 4,250. Now, what's happening with Transit? They're going to 3.5. 3.9 and 4,250. So they're saying, okay, 3.5, 3.9. The reasoning behind that is you will get the same payload as a standard 3.5 ton Transit with that, and at 4,250 you'll get more payload. I think they're quoting in around about 1765 kilograms off the top of my head in terms of that. So, and then we've got the Ducato as well. Again, available as a van, a chassis cab, a minibus, same as we've got with Maxus, and we've also getting with the Lloyd Transit. And if we look at that one, Stellantis, a 75 kilowatt hour battery, go up to 1800, just over 1800 at 4.25, and so and that does 230 miles. Again, this is all WLTP. We're also basing it in the city, because no matter what happens, just as you found with cars, electric vans like cities. They do not like long runs. Once you do long runs, then it hits it and it starts going through the battery like it's going out of fashion. So stop start, lovely bits of that. Heavy regen, for instance, when I go on the, I've got a Citroen at the moment, the Dispatch. When I get in there, immediately I go to what I call BECO. BECO stands for B, which is heavy regen, and eco, which is the eco driving mode. There's 3 driving modes for that: power, normal, and eco. It defaults, and I really do hate it, it defaults to normal. I wish it default to eco, because that's what I really want always. I want to maximize the range. So I go to eco and I go to heavy regen, which is press another B button. So I call that BECO, and then I drive like that in the city, and I can gain mileage. Last night I did maybe 4 miles, 5 miles, and I actually did not lose any range at all. So in a lot of cases, driver training, that's why the government have worked it out, the fact that 4.25, you need to, and education. You cannot, if you drive an electric van like you drive an electric a diesel van, you will not get the consumption that you need, but you've got to drive it differently. It's very much like driving trucks, where you're taught when you're driving a HGV, which I've had for obviously 30 years or so, you're taught to anticipate and look ahead, and that's exactly the same. So yeah, the short answer is we've got a lot of theoretical vehicles. We've got some great vehicles on there with, from the Stellantis group, from Ford, those sort of players from Mercedes-Benz, and all those. Renault as well with the Master have done really well. That's going to second generation coming up this quarter. So we've got some traditional stuff, and then we've got Maxus, who have come along and done really, really well in this last 18 months, 2 years, and will continue to do. So and every quarter we go, we're going to get more vehicles, but availability is still an issue at the moment. But you can still get them, and the big fleets are mainly because of the fact that you've got some big orders from the DPDs, the DHLs, the supermarkets, parcels. They're ordering 1,000 at a time, 2,000. That means that Joe Bloggs in the street, in a lot of cases, is going to miss out to an extent.
Yeah, and conversely, that will then put pressure on used, good quality used vans.
Yeah. I just let me mention also a disruptor, Arrival. Look at Arrival at the moment. I mean, they're doing quite well. I know they're behind, because I know through COVID, I've been to their R&D centre a couple of times, or the head office and then the R&D centre. And talking to them, COVID obviously had to lay a lot of people off, engineers, etc. And then semiconductor has meant that they're, I suspect, and obviously, it's up to them to say where they are. But my gut feeling is they're 6 to 9 months behind where they should be. I think they were looking at September last year. I think you'll see them obviously this year sometime. But if you look at that vehicle, up to 133 kilowatt hour battery, you're looking at, I think it's just over 2 tons on the 4.25 vehicle, and they can do over 200 miles, and you're looking at 17 cubic meters around that sort of thing. So choice is going to be a major thing. We're going to get better as we go along. I see 2022 as the year where we break out, and 23 is going to be a lot better, and we're going to get a lot more availability and a lot of second generation vehicles, just like we've had with Renault coming along this year. We've had the same with Vito. We're going to see the same with Sprinter. Can't miss out Sprinter. Sprinter's been one of the best selling vehicles, electric vehicles in the UK. The likes of Amazon, people like that have gone phenomenally well on that. The problem with that was the range, 95 to 100, 110 maybe at the most. So we've got some great choice, but the first generation in a lot of cases, the second iteration is coming along, and we're going to see the major stuff the really dedicated stuff. I mean, if you look at it, we've only got one purely fully electric vehicle that doesn't have a diesel vehicle or electric alternative, and that's the e-Deliver 3 from Maxus. That is composite, lightweight, only available as electric, and that's, I'm not saying the van itself is the future, but in terms of that, but I think that's what people will be copying, i.e. making sure it's lightweight and composite, to make it purely an electric vehicle, because we do need light and we need different methods of looking after the vehicle. When I'll talk later on about conversions and things like that. But yeah, we've got an interesting time ahead of it. I love every second of it, I must admit.
I can hear your enthusiasm coming through.